Good afternoon and welcome to the October 2018 edition of the Marks Group GoldMine Tips and Tricks webinars. We put on these tips and tricks webinars once a month. You can always visit our tips and tricks from ages past by heading on over to www.marksgroup.net. So what are we talking about this week? We're going to look at increasing your font size. What fun that'll be. We're going to look at increasing your SQL results. How do we do it? I'm going to show you how. And we're going to look at querying contacts without history, which is probably the most useful SQL query you can ever start with. So without further ado, let's jump into some GoldMine. There we go. Okay, so increasing font size is going to happen under Tools, Options, right? So anything under here is your personal options. So you can really kind of change whatever you want in here without doing too much damage. Stay away from the email tab, but anything else is kind of fair game. So what we want to do is go to the Record tab. You can see here the big menu we have to change font size is using a large font or not. Right there. You can see that my font is already large. That is the only thing that you can do to increase your font in GoldMine. If you want bigger letters, you actually have to change that in Windows itself, which we're not going to cover today. But while we're here, there's a couple of other things that we can do to make GoldMine a little bit easier to read. You can use the bright background. I think it defaults to that nowadays, but back in the day it used to default to this dark background, so it was blue text on a gray background, and it hurts you. Another cool thing to do here is to select the contents of fields automatically. So what that does, this is a neat little stupid pet trick. What that does is when I select a field in GoldMine, or when I click into a field in GoldMine, if that automatically select the contents of fields is enabled, you'll see here that I click in there, the value is already highlighted. So it's ready for me to hit Control-C to copy it out of there. So again, that was Tools, Options, Record, and select contents of field. This is extremely useful if you find yourself copying and pasting a lot of stuff out of GoldMine in like emails and stuff like that. This can be a godsend. Other things to play with here are going to be your tabs. I'll just show you this quickly. You can actually customize what tabs are available on the bottom tab strip here. So if we go to tabs, you can see here, as you might imagine, we're going to check or uncheck the tabs that we want or don't want. Now, the reason we want to do this is we want to make GoldMine as benign and friendly as possible to our end users. GoldMine out of the box comes with everything turned all the way on and all the way up, and I have yet to see a client that even approaches 60% of usage in the software. So what we want to do, especially with the beginning end users, is remove as much crap that they're never going to touch as humanly possible. So in this case, maybe we want to disable like the fields tab. Maybe we're not using that. Maybe we're not using the additional contacts. Oh, that's a story for another day. That's awful. So, but you get the idea. And when you do that, it's going to prompt you to log back in. And there we go. Incidentally, you can also move your tabs left to right. You know that if you click drag. Isn't that cool? And when you do that, you do it only for you. Unless you're a system administrator and you go to, I'll just show you this just so you don't get into trouble. If we go back to Tools, Options, Record, Tabs, if you have master right, you're going to have this Customize Globally checkbox. That works as you might expect. Any changes you make here will be globally pushed out to all users. So you can really screw some stuff up if you don't know what you're doing. So just be very mindful of that. Okay, let us continue on our voyage into GoldMine. Increasing SQL results. Okay, so and also, incidentally, the Search Center results pane. So if I go to my search, or if I go to my SQL query, which is under Tools, and we're going to get to queries in a moment, SQL query, when I list records, or when GoldMine returns records here, there's actually a limit on how many records it's going to return. So for example, the Search Center, now did you know this? Did you know this? If you right-click here, you can select Summary, and you get this neat little count of the items in your list down here at the bottom. And you can do that in pretty much any window in GoldMine that has a list of stuff. Oops, not filter, summary. So any window that has a list of stuff, you can right click and select summary and see the count of the objects. Now the reason I'm bringing that up is because if I want to use my search center for, say, not looking up a contact specifically, but for actually using filters, then you knew you could do that, right? If you click this filters groups button, you can actually view your filters and groups right in the search center. And this is really kind of where you want to do that stuff anyway. All I'm trying to show you is that when you start returning thousands and thousands of rows in your search center, you're going to run into problems. The problem's going to be GoldMine will cut itself off at, let's say, 10,000 records, and you'll wonder why the hell it's doing that. I'm going to show you where to change that. We're going to go to Tools, Configure, and down to System Settings. And we want to go to the Display tab. Now there's two numbers that are in play here. There's the maximum records shown in the Search Center on the top, and the SQL query results here at the bottom. So you see that mine's set to 2,000 and 20,000 respectively, but let's say I had a database with like 75,000 contacts in it, and I want to generate a list approaching that. You're not going to be able to do it until you increase these numbers. Yeah, and you can actually, I think, increase these numbers to whatever you want. I think even 100,000. Yeah, sure, why not? How many zeros? Oh, that's it. So it looks like maybe 900,000. I would not go that high. I was just curious to see how high we could go. I would not go above 100,000 here unless you have some time on your hands, because what's going to happen is that the bigger these numbers get, the longer GoldMine is going to take to start. Now, typically this isn't a huge issue, but you will notice it. You will feel it. And actually, the smaller you make these numbers, the quicker GoldMine is going to start. Now, once it starts, it's fine. It's not like it behaves slowly or anything. But the startup time, if these numbers are very, very large, can be agonizing. So my first number is going to be the number of records shown in the search center. So let me set that to, say, 50,000. And the SQL query results, set that to 50,000 as well. And what you'll have to do is restart your GoldMine. You're not supposed to see my desktop. I'm not sure what's going on here. So now we would be able to query up to 50,000 records. So if you guys have been running into that, that's where you fix that. And when you make that change under Tools, Configure, System Settings, Display, it's for the whole GoldMine installation. Oops, you're not seeing that. You're not seeing that. You get to see my lovely graveyard of a desktop. There we go. So again, if you, that's under Tools, Configure, System Settings, Display. Change those numbers. And you know what? If you wanted to increase those numbers just for just to generate some lists and then change them back, why, that's just perfectly fine. So let's go ahead and jump into a query for contacts without history. Now, if you'd like to play along at home, you can go back to our CRM blog. You can find that at marksgroup.net. And then you can actually copy and paste the SQL or SQL code out of my post and into your GoldMine. Essentially, SQL queries under Tools, SQL Query. This is a way to directly query the database, and the reason why you want to use an SQL query is it's super fast. If you can learn or get somebody to write the SQL query for you, and I'm going to show you some examples today, wow, the sky's the limit. They're extremely robust. You can pretty much get anything you want out of GoldMine. So anytime anyone tells you, oh, you can't filter on that, or oh, you can't do it quite that way, SQL queries, they can do anything to anything. So let's go ahead and I'm going to show you how to generate a list of contacts with no history. Actually, I'm going to cheat, and I'll explain the query here in just a moment. I just copied that out of our blog. All right, so basically, and I'm not going to really explain everything about SQL, but what we're doing here is we're selecting, we are selecting some columns, right? So yeah, SQL queries in GoldMine always start with the word select. So we're going to select some stuff, and we select these columns, and we select them from a database table. In this case, we're using the contact one table. If you really care to know all the back-end names of the tables, you can find that stuff online. Simply to say, contact one is anything on the top half of the record, and anything in the Fields tab, which we can't see because I turned it off. Oh, now it's going to restart. Anything in the Fields tab is going, oh, come on, where'd you go? There we go. Anything in the Fields tab where all of your user-defined fields are going to be in the Contact To table. So essentially, we're selecting stuff from this table, from the Contacts table, where, and I want to explain this, where they don't have any history. And what that will do is, and once you query that, and you'll see how snappy that was, SQL queries are super duper fast and robust. So when I do that, I immediately get a list of stuff. Now, the reason why I'm returning or grabbing this account no field, because that's this messy field right here. That's actually the unique identifier on the back end of every record in GoldMine. And now, when you return that value, what you're able to do is click on, you see how my record is changing here in the back? As I click on each of these results, I can actually go right to that record. So you see that this is extremely useful. The other really cool thing that you can do with SQLs is once you have a list of results, you're going to right-click and output that to Excel. And you can do that actually for any list in GoldMine. Let me show you here. I'm going to show you what it looks like. So this is what you get. How easy is that? How many times have you laid awake at night wondering how you're going to export that stuff from GoldMine into Excel? No more, my friends. We're going to do it easily with a right click, output to Excel. You can also do that, for example, in this, in this history tab. I could right click and output to Excel. Anywhere there's a list. Oh, and you betcha, the Contact Search Center. If I, let me just find a bunch of people. Oh, equal to. Or not. There we go. So you can see here that once we start viewing your filters and groups in the Contact Search Center, because we're able to right click and output to Excel, wow, that should take a load off, right? I mean, that is huge. It's one of the best kept secrets in GoldMine. It's one of the things that no one really thinks to do or knows is there. So at any rate, we are just about out of time. Listen, I'm always looking for the next batch of tips and tricks. I'd love to know what you love to know what you hate. Please reach out to me at justin@marksgroup.net. Thanks so much for attending, and have a great day.